separated in a storm and a fog. The Deliverance turns around to Jamestown, and the Patience ends up coming back here with the Admiral. But first, we knew the Patience had busted out a plank in the storm. They had to go into the mainland to fix it. The British did not keep meticulous records like the Spanish. So for the longest time, we really didn't know where they went. All you knew is they were gone for about 2 months. Must have had a crazy adventure. And like I said, I'm going to tell you about some of the fish that live on the reef where we're going. And I have a picture book of just like the common fish. I'm going to show all of these to you, and I think you should be able to see at least 80%, if not all of them, maybe within the first half an hour. So these are the more common ones. We should see other ones as well. But before I tell you about these tropical reef fish, I need to let you know there's 3 main groups or families of fish. And the first group I'm not going to talk about very much because we're just not going to see them. They're called pelagic fish. Those are the deep ocean fish, tuna, wahoo, marlins, things like that. They do big migrations around the ocean. They come past Bermuda, Caribbean, they swim all over. Now, they're generally not going to come on top of the plateau, the picture that I showed you, all the shallow water, for a few reasons. Probably the main 2 reasons are it's really just the wrong food source for them. And that's going to become more apparent when I tell you about these reef fish. They have good defenses. But you have to keep this in mind, that the key for survival for any predator animal, whether it's a fish, mammal, reptile, bird, whatever it is actually just to capture food while it's easy and preserve your energy till it's easy again. So the middle of the day is the wrong time for these big predators to chase down fish. For instance, you don't really see a big 500-pound shark cruising over the shallow reef to chase down a 5-ounce butterfly fish. It's too much work, not enough payoff. So they want to try to get bigger fish. They're going to have better luck hunting at dusk and dawn throughout the night. Now, I've been coming out here for over almost 25 years. I've done over 2,000 trips to the reef, and I have seen 2 sharks. So it's not impossible, but it's really rare. My wife, Gwen, she's usually with me, but she's been coming out here for about 16 years with me, and she's seen 1. All right, so it's just not that common. Now, I don't want to freak you out about the shark thing. We're probably not going to see one, but every once in a while, you might hear about a fisherman like catching a shark, like right here, not even a mile past Dockyard or off the shore. This would be at nighttime. I'll swim anywhere out here on the reef, daytime, no problem. I'm not a fan of sharks. You cannot pay me $1 million to swim at Blue Hole at night. There probably is not going to be a shark there, but my imagination's pretty scary. So anyway, I'll probably have a heart attack if I touch something. But anyway, you might get a shark right here. There are a group of fish that come out at night that a shark has an opportunity to catch. These are called transient fish, and we're going to see some of these on the reef. I got a couple pictures of some of them. It's your basic silver, gray, or white fish. It's not so exciting. They're called transients because it might live on a reef over here in the daytime for its protection. It's going to come into areas like below us, this grassy, sandy bottom, turtle grass. There's a lot of crab, crustaceans, shrimp in the grass that these transient fish want to eat. They want to be silver, gray, and white so they can blend into the sandy bottom while they're out in the open and they're vulnerable at night. While they are out in the open, they are vulnerable, and like I said, a shark might have an opportunity to catch one of them, and that's why you might get a shark at night. And like I said, I'm going to tell you about a few of the transients that move around. It lives on a reef here, feeds here, but next month it might move to another reef over there. So it's in transit, it's moving around. It's not leaving Bermuda, but it's just always moving around the plateau. As opposed to transients, the ones I'm really going to tell you about are called resident reef fish. And as the name implies, they reside right on the reef. They're just going to pick a little cave, that's where his home is, and they're going to stay there all the time. So we can go to certain reefs that we've been to before. We already know what kind of residents are going to be there. They're just about always going to be there. And so these are the ones I'm mostly going to tell you about. And I'm going to start with parrotfish, just because they're like the most obvious ones. They're a little bit big. Bermuda is actually considered the parrotfish capital in the Atlantic. There's 14 continents in the Atlantic, and they're all here. But they get the names parrots because, for one, they just come in such a variety of colors and sizes like parrots do. Okay? Also, if you can see there, his teeth are sort of fused together like a beak. And they're going to use his beak to scrape away algae that grows on the rocks. And I actually have a jawbone of a parrotfish if I can reach it. Just 1 second. Got my microphone. Should have planned this one out. I'm going to pass this around. I just want you to see how the teeth grow in layers. And these teeth are constantly growing throughout their life. So they're pretty much constantly scraping away on the rocks. They've got to wear them down a bit so they don't get too buck-toothed to eat. Now, scraping away on the rocks, they're going to ingest a lot of sand. I don't know how else to put this, but if you kind of spook a parrotfish, you might see it poop out a cloud of sand. They say a parrotfish, an adult fish, can make up to a ton of sand in its life. Kind of puts a new spin on the beach if you're thinking about it. I'm joking there. Most of the sand on the beach is probably going to come from wave erosion. But out here on the reef, there's no wave erosion. Everything's below the surface. Quite a lot of the sand you will see around the reef will come from parrotfish, calcified algae, and stuff like that. But anyway, when they're scraping on the rocks, sometimes they actually get a bigger chunk of rock in their throat, and they have another set of teeth in their throat. This is half of the bottom of what they call a pharyngeal mill. There'll be a rounder piece on top, and they can grind the rock up like that. They can actually get nutrients right out of the rock that way. They're not the only fish to have a pharyngeal mill, you know, like crustacean eaters. They can crush up shellfish and stuff in their throat, crabs, things like that. I don't know if you want to have a look at that. It's kind of a funny thing. Now, you guys, parrotfish are protected here in Bermuda, so we don't eat them. So I actually didn't catch this fish and eat it. I just found his teeth while I was snorkeling. So it probably came from a large rainbow parrotfish. Now, the reason these guys are so protected here is because they actually help promote coral growth. Back in the 20s and 30s, they didn't know so much about them. They noticed the erosion. They actually called them destroyers of the coral reef, and that was the worst name we could have given them. They're actually helping promote coral growth, like I said. And now I just have to briefly explain a little bit about coral to you. So, a little more show and tell. Got a little sea fan here. So this is a purple sea fan. This kind of broke off in a storm and just washed ashore. You're really not supposed to keep anything like this, shells, anything like that. You know, coral can die and it'll break off, it'll lay on the bottom, something else will grow on top of it, and so that's how a coral reef is formed. So, educational. When I retire, this goes back overboard. Very small one. We're gonna see bigger ones out here. They're gonna be darker purple. Now, this has been faded, and if you can see, you got the purple bit, and then up here, it's falling off, and you can see the darker skeleton. So if you wanna have a look at that, sorry guys, I'm reaching so far for that, but anyway. A little coral like that, it's actually an animal. They're not plants. The difference between a plant and an animal is that a plant will make its own food with photosynthesis. An animal has to capture its food. So we're going to see sea fans, sea rods, all this kind of stuff waving around in the water. And they're just trying to pick up nutrients. So we're going to see a big purple one. Right next to it, you might see this fuzzy greenish brown one. So these are both exactly the same thing. It's just that fuzzy greenish one actually has all its little feeders out, its mouths. So like I said, a coral like that would be covered with hundreds of little mouths. They're called polyps. Looks like a little hand or a little flower. Very simple. Something touches it, it grabs it, it pulls it in, dissolves what it can, spits out the rest. It's a bit of a chain reaction. That one pulls in, the next one, they all pull in. And then you see the colorful part of the coral is actually the skeleton, okay? So what I'm trying to get at with these animals is they actually spawn. It just happened last week. It has to do with moon cycles, water temperatures. But they actually release a sperm and an egg that float to the surface. It makes a zygote called a medusa, a little larvae of a coral. That medusa is kind of like just a single mouth of a polyp, and it just goes right down to the ocean floor. It needs to attach itself onto something solid, like a shipwreck or a rock. It can't grow out of the sand, it'll get so big and fall over, so it needs a foundation. Now, if all the rocks and everything are covered with algae, medusa can't attach itself and it can't grow. And that's why the parrotfish are so important. They've cleaned off all the algae spots, making new room for coral to grow, okay? So you guys, I do talk a lot about parrotfish because they're so important, but the other ones I'm gonna go through a little bit more quickly, okay? But I just wanted to tell you what kind of function they do and why they're so important. They're not like the only algae eaters, but they really do the best job at cleaning the reef. If you got rid of all your parrotfish and you came back next year, the reef will still look okay, but 15 or 20 years, you're gonna lose a lot of coral, all right? Things will just get choked up with the algae and new coral can't grow. So anyway, I'm just gonna go through some of the parrotfish. On top we have a princess, and on the bottom is a queen parrotfish. And these are some of the more common ones, okay? Right here we have a stoplight parrotfish. This is probably the most common one maybe. Now it's called stoplight because it turns from red to green. Pretty much all fish can change colors. Some can completely change colors like this. Some might just change a shade of whatever they are, like a light blue or a dark blue. Some fish maybe just got like a streak or a line or something over his eye, something like that. Now, this guy changes colors, but this is not your basic color change. This is also an example of a sex change. Fish change sex, who knew? Now, it's different for different fish. A lot of the pelagic fish, like marlins, they start out as a juvenile stage. Then the smaller ones are sort of males. The bigger, older marlins are gonna be like the females. It's mostly the other way around on the reefs, a juvenile stage, female and then male. The way it sort of works for the parrotfish is you're gonna have a territory on the reef, and you're gonna have a group of females of a species, and we're gonna see them congregate sometimes. It looks like a little bit of a school. It's actually not a school. A school almost always stays together. These guys congregate, they separate. We actually call this a harem. So you have a territory of reef, a harem of females, and then generally, you're gonna have like one male per territory, per species on the reef. It could be more, but usually one. Now, I don't know how long this guy's gonna live as a male, but this is the terminal phase. Eventually this green one is gonna die. What will happen is the next dominant female in the group is gonna turn into the next male. And this is kind of a good way of doing it because that dominant female obviously had like a good genetic structure, it was a good feeder, all that kind of stuff. And hopefully its offspring will benefit in that kind of way, okay? So I'm not gonna tell you how all the fish do it, but there's a couple other interesting ones that are kind of fun. All right, this is my wife's favorite fish altogether. This guy up here is called a midnight parrotfish. Kind of a blue purple body, but they have these really shiny iridescent blue markings. I almost always see this one by itself. I have seen them schooled up together before. They can get kind of big. It comes and goes. I can't really guarantee this is not the most common one, but it's probably one of the prettiest ones. And also this one. Hopefully we'll see this one too. This is called a rainbow parrotfish. This is the largest parrotfish around Bermuda. And they can get up to about 4 feet, 60 pounds. And they can be very rainbow colored. Now, we do see them at Blue Hole, but one of the funny things is we see these biggest parrotfish in the shallowest water for the most part. If it's too rough to come out here to the reef, I go around that island into Ely's Harbor. There's just a couple rocks and little small islands at the mouth of Ely's Harbor. Most of the coral is small, like that sea fan. There's a lot of juvenile fish, which is great because they're very colorful. But there's a school of probably 10 or 12 big rainbows that live there all the time. And they're just really beautiful. But they're kind of spooky sometimes. If you don't expect it, you swim around the edge of a rock and you come head on with this guy and you spook them, they jump and you jump too. But they're just really, really beautiful. All right. So that's kind of it for the parrotfish. Like I said, we'll see more different kinds of parrotfish than that. Those are just some really common ones. Now, my favorite group of fish, called damsels. They're mostly small guys. There's tons of different kinds of damsels here. I think they're all pretty. They're mostly like, 4 inches. Some are probably up to 8 inches. And some are just kind of black in color, but they still have just a really pretty shape, all right? These are very, very feisty little guys. I'm gonna show you my favorite one, all right? This is my favorite fish. I'll skip right over him. This little guy in the top corner, it's called a jewelfish. That's when they're juvenile, okay? When they get older, they get a yellow tail, but they still have these iridescent blue markings on their back. Really pretty guy. We got a pretty sunny day. You might just swim along and just catch this glittery flash of blue out of the corner of your eye. That's probably him. My best tip for you is just to try to find that spot and be very still, okay? You're gonna do your best snorkeling when you stop moving. Of course, you have to swim around to get to different spots, but when you find a nice spot, just be very still. And a lot of times these little small fish will come out and look at you, okay? But it's a big reef out here, it's a beautiful reef. Sometimes I get people that see it and they're like, man, I'm just gonna go all over, I'm gonna do more territory than anybody's ever done. And then they take off like Michael Phelps. And they're splashing, they're aggressive. They're actually gonna scare away half the stuff before they ever see it. I'll get somebody who's kind of new at it, they're a little bit nervous, and they're like, I'm just gonna stay right here close to the boat and drift around. That person will probably see everything in the book, okay? So you don't have to go a half a mile away from Blue Hole to see Blue Hole, okay? So I am by myself today, so let's try not to do that. Sometimes people put their heads down and just go and go and go. So every once in a while, look at the boat, make sure you're not way, way out and I'm chasing you. Okay, so these ones are a little bit bigger of the damsel family, maybe about 6 to 8 inches. They sort of control the territories a bit on the reef, and they are very territorial. We call them guardians or protectors of the coral reef. You may see a little damsel chasing away a big parrotfish. The thing is, damsels farm the algae. They gather bits they like to eat in their mouth, they take it to their little cave, they have a garden that they cultivate and harvest. A lot of work goes into this garden, and so he does not like a big parrotfish eating it, so that little fish will chase away a parrotfish. Here's a couple more damsels, a little smaller, the Coco and the Beau Gregory. And they are actually allowed to feed in the bigger damsel's garden in his territory, but they have a job to do. When the big one's out away looking for more food, the little guy's got to stay behind to protect it from the other fish, okay? So that's just one of many symbiotic relationships going on out here. They benefit each other. But anyway, these are my favorite fish. They can be some of the most colorful, shiny ones. And once again, where we're going to Blue Hole, it's going to be very dense with coral. I kind of equate spotting some of these smaller fish is like trying to spot birds in a rainforest. So once again, you really want to just slow down and float and look deep into the reef, and then you can kind of see these. The parrotfish are obvious. There they are. They're big, but really take a little bit of time to try to find some of the small ones. All right. So those are some damsels. Here's two oddballs of the damsel family. This guy here is a blue chromis, really pretty. Unfortunately, we're not going to see it. They are a little bit deeper than blue hull. We're definitely going to see this guy. It's called a sergeant major, probably one of the most successful reef fish around. Also, probably one of the most ferocious fish around. It's been known to nip and bite at people, stuff like that. It's not a big deal. They're only about that big, so it's okay. Just like, they're only about that big, maybe that big. They have these little rubbery lips, no real teeth. They can't do much to you, but it's a damsel. It's very territorial. It thinks you are a big fish in its territory, and he's chasing you away. So if you swim away, they will leave you alone. They won't nip at you, but they do really like shiny blonde hair, so good luck to you too. I'm just joking. I looked at Gwen one day. She had 3 of them in her hair. But they're going to come right up to the boat. They are a scavenger. We'll feed them a little bit. We want to practice minimal impact, meaning we want to leave the reef the way we found it. So we don't want to overdo the feeding, but they're just fun. They'll come right up to the boat. Okay, so that's the damsels. This guy here is called a surgeon, ocean surgeon or surgeon. It's kind of got maybe some cousins, I guess. This is a doctor fish. So surgeon and a doctor. And a blue tang. Okay, so they're all pretty much the same kind of shape, just different colors. So wrasses, like I said, many different kinds of wrasses. A lot of them are kind of crustacean eaters. A lot of wrasses, even though I consider it a resident reef fish, they don't really live in a cave. Some of them actually just burrow under the sand and kind of sleep under the sand type of thing. Well, these are called Creole wrasse, real pretty purple color. These are actually ones that I say can kind of look like a blue chromis. I can't guarantee these will be here. They move around a bit. They're actually not going to be in the coral in the reef. They'll probably be more on the side of the reef, a little more open water. They are very pretty, but the thing is, like, if they're between us, you're like, Keith, those purple ones. When I'm on the other side, I look at them like, they're not really purple. They kind of look gray. But if I swim around to your side, yeah, they're purple. It kind of depends how the light hits them, okay? I'm going to go through the wrasses quickly. There's a lot of them. All right, and this guy here is called a hogfish. This is the largest of the wrasses here in Bermuda. This guy is one of our local favorites to eat because it's such a picky eater itself. We don't eat the parrotfish, but generally those algae eating type fish, they're really not so great. This guy eats crabs and lobsters and oysters and stuff like that, and it tastes good too. Now, this is sort of hit or miss, all right? I can't guarantee we're going to see this one. It has to do with timing. The main reason I have this fish in here is really to illustrate something that these reef fish do in the morning. Most of them are going to wake up and pick out a route, and they're going to travel this route all day. So a little damselfish, his territory might only be, say, 20, 30 feet on the reef, maybe not even that. It's going to do a little figure 8, 10, 20, 30 times a day, I don't know. A bigger parrotfish might have 100 yards of reef, a little bit bigger, so it's going to do its route maybe 5 or 6 times, who knows. While this guy may do a mile or 2 miles, even more, and so it might just do it once. But they can be like clockwork. I've noticed them before at the dock, but say you lived on the waterside and you fed your dinner scraps to your dock fish at 8 in the morning, come down the next morning, 8 o'clock. Very likely you might see this guy come by. It's kind of cool, but it makes them easy to catch, right? So it's not good for them, but anyway, good for us. All right, now if you don't see that big white one, the females are smaller and they're pink and red, so they're really pretty. So that's one that goes the other way around, female then male. This is a Spanish hogfish, all right? It's a little smaller, prettier colors, same kind of thing. Should just see it right on the reef. Oh, here's a pudding wife. Okay, I don't know who names fish. It's called a pudding wife. And this can actually be the most playful fish in the water. I don't exactly expect you guys to do this, but if you're any good at holding your breath, and if you dive down into a sand hole in the reef, if you dig a hole in the sand or maybe flip over some rocks or something, if this guy sees you doing that, he'll swim straight to that spot that you dug up. And if he finds a nice little crab or crustacean, you made a friend. Now, you can't just swim along and say, sand hole, I'm going to do it. They got to see you doing it, so I usually wait till I see one first, then I start diving. But if you're persistent, if you keep going down, you keep digging, they're going to find you eventually. And once they come around, it doesn't take very long, just, 5 minutes of slowly digging, nice and calm. You can't be jerky, but they're going to be right next to your hand. They want to be there first to see what you dig up for them. So you might get a few of them coming around. You can just about touch these things. Now, we really don't want to touch anything down here. You can actually burn fish with a sunblock on your hands. Most of you that have snorkeled before know not to touch the coral, so I don't really have to go into that too much, but yeah, we just want to avoid touching the coral altogether. They all have a slimy mucous membrane. The purpose of this membrane is to keep out bacteria. Sunblock can break down the membrane. That's how bacteria gets in, and that's how we damage it. It's not really the physical touch, okay? So we just want to avoid touching it. All right, but anyway, you guys can manage to do that. It's a lot of fun. You'll swim away, you forget about your little friend, and you look behind you like 15 minutes later. It's just going everywhere you go, okay? So they're kind of fun. I actually had one bit me clean through my ear one day. Yeah, that's not a common thing. We were out on the reef. If you flip over rocks, it gets the attention of the hogfish, the ones we like to eat. My dad was spearfishing one day. He was flipping over rocks. He had a bunch of pudding whites for following him. He got a hogfish and he came back to the boat. He gave me the spear and said, "Do you want to try to get one?" And so I said, "Yeah, let me try." So I go down and I'm flipping over rocks and I'm thinking to myself, we got a good hogfish, we don't need two. So I stopped flipping over rocks. Well, meanwhile, those pudding wires were just following me, probably about 10 of them. And then, you know, about 10 minutes later, one of them just whacked me in my ear and it hurt. And then I looked and it was just right in my face. I think I like just, you know, flip over rocks, get on with it, you know, so. Don't worry, they don't usually do that. Okay, these wrasses I have to tell you about. We're gonna see patches of little yellowfish here and there all over the reef. And these are probably some of the most important fish on the reef as far as the other fish are concerned. They are a type of cleaner fish. Once again, when the water hits about 82 degrees, fish will grow parasites on their bodies and it makes them sick and ill and they need to get cleaned up. Any fish. It could be a barracuda, moray eel, anything. But just say a parrotfish will come right in the middle of this school, point his nose to the surface, open his mouth. That signals he wants to be cleaned. And then these ones will go all over his body, picking off bugs and parasites, and they'll actually go in their mouth, clean up between their teeth, they'll go through their gill plates, they clean them up inside and out. Now, as long as these guys are performing this cleaning function, they're not going to get eaten. So this is a safe way to be. And something I didn't tell you about these colors, I missed one. We're going to see quite a bit of yellowfish, all right? Smaller ones. Now, the color yellow in nature can be a safe color to be. Sometimes it's a sign of creatures being toxic in the animal kingdom. It's not true for every yellowfish, but it is true for some. Frogs and amphibians that are yellow, pretty much going to be toxic, okay? Now, I did miss all the angelfish. And they can be a bit toxic. The thing is, the angelfish actually eat sponge. Here we go. Here's a rock beauty, all right? This guy, quite yellow. They eat sponge. These rock beauties tend to be a little bit deeper than where we're going. Sometimes we get a glimpse of them at the bottom. So if you don't get a real good look at the rock beauty, the angelfish, here's another one for you. This is a queen angelfish, has a crown on her forehead. And here's our Bermuda or blue angelfish. You find them in the Caribbean as well. It just was documented here for us, got the Bermuda name. The two of these have actually bred together to create a hybrid called a Townsend. Here's our Townsend. It mostly looks like a blue, but it has a small crown on its forehead. And then here's our blue angelfish again. All right? Now, these guys, they can get about that big in the first 5 to 7 years, and they sort of stop growing. But they can live up to be about 20, maybe 22, 23 years old. We have a way of aging them. I know this is a young angelfish, relatively young, because the top and bottom fin are short and stubby. And these fins are going to continue to grow throughout their life. And so this is a much older fish, has longer, wispier fins, okay? So, kind of like when the fins sort of get the length of the body, then you know it's a very mature fish, all right? It's probably near its end of its life. Now, it's kind of funny, but back in the 20s and 30s, they used to eat these fish here. I guess they didn't know so much about the reef fish. It wasn't something you would have every night. You went out to a fancy restaurant somewhere, you looked at that table, oh, I want to try that, that looks good. Well, your angelfish probably tasted fine, but when you got home that night, you just had stomach cramps all night, and you know, it didn't really kill you, but it's just not going to agree with you. So eventually they figured out not to eat these angelfish. Now, not every yellowfish is toxic, okay? I want to give you a couple tips for these. One thing is, you know how you might have a state bird or state flower? This is actually the Bermuda Island bird. But when you spot an angelfish, where we kind of mess up, these guys are really shy. And the first thing we do, like get a fish, we go straight at it, okay? Anything going directly at a fish is sort of a threat. We call this the pike effect. They think you're interested in eating it, particularly with this one. Now, if I want to get close to a fish, say you're the fish again, I'm not going to go straight at you. I'm going to kind of come up this way and flank you and then maybe drift over the top. These ones are very shy. If you go straight at it, it's most likely going to hide for about a half an hour. You'll probably be the only one to see it. You're not going to come back to the boat and say, Keith, I saw 20 angelfish. It just doesn't happen that way. I wish it did. These guys, they are pretty solitary and they're very territorial. And so you just got to cover a lot of different territories to see a lot of different angelfish. That's about all I can tell you about it. I do like to see them. Very pretty. They're sort of shy and curious at the same time. They'll come out, look at you, and then go back in the hole. Anyway, hope you see them. And so we did our wrasses, the cleaners and stuff. There's other fish that clean. Sometimes fish will go down into a cave and sleep at night, and like shrimp will come down and clean them. And sometimes you see a fish rubbing his sides on the sandy bottom. It's called flashing. You ever see like an eagle ray jump out of the water and smack down? It's trying to get rid of parasites. Unless they do it over and over and over again, and that could be a sign of breeding. But anyway, parasites are a big deal. So this is some gray snappers. All right, these are just some of the transients that come out and feed at night. They're going to be lingering around on the reef during the daytime, just kind of chilling out, conserving their energy. They mostly feed dusk and dawn throughout the night. And there should be a school. They're usually in one spot. I can kind of point. The gray snappers will be right there. They're pretty big, and they're usually, 8 or 10 of them just right there. Okay, this guy is a yellowtail snapper. This is a yellowfish that's very good to eat. This is one of my favorites. I like it cooked anyway. But also, if you like sushi, this one's hamachi, so this is a good one. Now, this is one of the few daytime predator fish that's going to use energy in the middle of the day to chase down other fish. Like I mentioned earlier, that takes a lot of energy. It might not even catch anything. So if he's chasing fish and is getting hungry, hasn't caught anything, it can use tricks. It might have many tricks, but this is one I know about. So just get a look at him. It's just a silver body, yellow stripe, basic fish shape. He kind of knows, he looks like this one. This is a yellow goatfish. They can be about the same size, same silver body. The difference is goatfish have whiskers under their chin, and they're crustacean eaters. They can flick around in the sand to find little crabs and crustaceans and stuff they like to eat. Now, you might get a school of 10 or 12 of them on a sandy bottom, flicking around. The act of flicking in the sand to find their food is actually going to reveal other bits of food that even smaller fish want to eat. You got these little tiny guys like this, little tomates, things like that, little silvery fish, maybe no bigger than a ½ inch. And they're going to join these guys and feed around in that school. Meanwhile, our yellowtail snapper, he's getting hungry. He knows he looks like a yellow goatfish, and he sees the other ones, so he's going to mimic a goatfish. He's just going to go nose down in the sand, poke around, act like a goatfish, and hopefully get close enough to one of these little ones that he can suck them up and eat them, okay? That's the kind of feeding you're most likely going to see in the day. We're not going to see a lot of chasing around. Things like jacks and mackerels and bonitas, they work together in big schools, and they will chase fish in the daytime, but they have the advantage of being in a school working together. Okay, so anyway, we should see that yellow guy swimming around. And then we got grunts. Grunts are kind of related to the snappers. There's a lot of different kinds. So here we got a blue striped grunt, French grunt, you got yellow grunts, white grunts, margates. There's a lot of different kind of grunts. They get the name because they also have a pharyngeal middle in the throat for crushing up crustaceans. And it's just when you catch one on a hook, they grunt very loudly. And they get the names grunts. And they're quite common. Okay, now anything that you see that's red with big eyes, it's going to be a nocturnal fish. So this is a squirrel fish, all right? They don't get too big. They're about that kind. So we got the long spine and the short spine. Also in this group of nocturnal reef fish, you get big groupers, all right? Now, groupers kind of come and go, but I have to tell you about them. They get the names groupers because they actually group together for mating. They'll have predetermined times and locations. It has to do with water temperature and moon cycles. And so they have these spots that could be called a breeding aggregate. Now, a breeding, watch your leg, Frank. Okay, a breeding aggregate spot is generally going to be deeper than blue hole. Could be anywhere from about 80 to 120 feet deep. And if you find one of these spots, you can find anywhere from like 200 to 500 big male groupers. And they're going to do a spiral from the sandy bottom right to the surface. It sort of looks like a tornado of fish underwater. And so they'll do that, and this can happen for a week or more. The females are going to come and they're going to lay gametes or eggs in that column of fish, and that's sort of how they breed. All right, so they go on these big migrations, and sometimes we see a lot of groupers. One morning I came out to Blue Hole and I counted over 40 groupers right inside Blue Hole. Just a quick rough count, probably more. I came back in the afternoon and there was only about 5 or 6. So they're all gathering together, going on a big migration, going to an aggregate spot. Sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't. There's probably going to be a couple smaller, younger groupers around Blue Hole that just kind of live there. That's their territory. So hopefully we'll see them that are there. The main reason, guys, I'm really telling you about groupers, because this has happened several times. These guys can turn a very pale shade of gray. And I've had people swim over the edge of a reef and look straight down on the back of a big grouper when he's gray. It could really take on a silhouette of a shark. And I've had people like freak out for a split second. It's like, shark! Anyway, it's this big grouper. They're actually kind of shy of us from spearfishing for all these years, and they do kind of keep their distance. So I'm not a big fan of this action. Back in my grandfather's day, we had Goliath grouper here, the 600, 800-pound versions of these. And they wiped them out. They had big wooden harpoons. They went out there, they got them, they ate them. I've never seen a Goliath grouper in Bermuda. I have heard of divers occasionally think they saw one down deep, but I think they wiped them all out. Sadly, the trend has sort of turned onto these ones, and it's sort of like this macho type sport. We get these young guys, they get their first spear, 18 years old. They want to try to go out and catch a 100-pound grouper because their friend got one, but they have no real experience with a big fish like this. And if they don't get a kill shot, a belly shot, this is a powerful fish. He's probably going to swim away, drag you through the rocks. You're going to let go of your spear, and it's probably just going to go die with your spear in it somewhere else. And I have actually seen groupers with broken spears in them. It just, it just kind of makes me mad. You got to go out, get some practice before you try to handle something like this. These guys, they can get quite old, 40, 50 years old, been down here for a long time, and some kid doesn't know what he's doing, he wastes one. There's not really a real shortage of groupers here. If you know what you're doing, you know you're going to catch this fish and take it home and eat it. I don't really have a problem with that, but sadly, a lot of these young guys want to get this one, and it's too powerful for them, okay? So hopefully we'll see some groupers. They're just really kind of graceful. They're really just slink along nice and smooth, and they'll usually slowly go and hide from us into a cave somewhere. Okay, so we have other types of groupers. This guy is a red hind. They can get probably about that big. And that's kind of how you'll probably see him. You might just see him stick his head out of a cave and probably slink back in, or maybe just go from one cave to the other real quickly, so they're mostly coming out at night. And we have quite a few of these different kinds of groupers, all right? More red hinds, conies, things like that. This little guy here is also in the grouper family. It's called a hamlet. These are small ones. Now, there's quite a few different kinds of hamlets. One of the strange things about a hamlet is, like most of those other fish, I said it can change sex. This one can actually lay its own eggs and fertilize its own eggs, okay? Its only defense is staying very close to home. Anything big swims by, it's just going to duck in its cave and hide. So it doesn't get to see many other hamlets. It has a small territory. However, if there are 2 hamlets nearby, they can take turns. Like one could be the boy today and the other one's the girl, and then the next day they can swap. It's called maximum reproduction. You're trying to get the most eggs out and fertilize as you can. Okay, I just have a few more to tell you. This is a Bermuda chub. Well, it's a school of chubs, and these are going to come right up to the boat, maybe with those little stripy sergeant majors. And they're sort of my pets, I guess you could say. They're a bit of a scavenger. So we'll feed them a little bit, but once again, I don't want to feed them too much. I don't want them to like rely on me, and I'm not coming out here in the wintertime. But they are a lot of fun, and usually when I have kids on the boat, it's really fun for them. Now, they're going to be right around the boat, and they're pretty big like that. But I just want you to know they're entirely friendly. They will not hurt you, all right? They will get very close to you. I'm going to be watching you guys the whole time that you swim on my lifeguard duty. One day, it was just really hot. I was sitting on the edge of the boat, had my feet in the water, trying to cool off. A little piece of bread, I was feeding my chubs. And then out of the blue, a great big chub like that comes up and grabs my toe. And it gives it a wiggle, and it scared me, so I jumped. But it didn't hurt. I just had a couple real light scrapes on my toe. Chubs actually have smooth, square teeth like humans do. So even if he does bite you, there's not too much going on there, okay? But yeah, they don't bite you, but they're going to be there. Okay, some things just aren't really worth telling you about too much. Some things are very well hidden. And there's quite a few fish. I'm just going to show you a couple common ones. This is a peacock flounder. It's got 2 eyes on the top and a mouth right there. And they can just lay on the bottom and just disappear right in front of you. And then you got things like this, sand diver. They can lay on the sand, they flick sand over their back, and 2 little eyes are poking out of the sand. The little fish comes over the top and you can come underneath and grab them. Or they can just lay on a rock. They always have their chin up, kind of like that. And they can just blend in. And you can see the color change happening and they just disappear again. Really cool. I just think it's funny about this one. He has a few names because the fishermen are superstitious here. Now, his real name's a sand diver. They call him a snakehead. I guess it's kind of got like a snake head. But it's also considered the bad luck fish or the Jonah fish, okay? And the superstition with the fishermen is if you catch one of these things and it touches your boat, go home. You're not gonna get another fish for the rest of the day. Now, I'm not superstitious at all, but anytime I do catch one of these, I'm very careful not to let it touch the boat. Why push your luck, you know? But anyway, that's a snakehead. And this is gonna be one of the last ones I tell you about. This guy's called a trumpet fish. Long, skinny guy. His mouth flows open wide like a bell of a trumpet, where he gets the name from. This is the only daytime predator of the resident reef fish group. Okay, so this is the only one trying to eat other fish. You got the nighttime residents, like all the groupers, they're predators, but this one's not a fast swimmer, so in order to capture its prey, it has to use tricks, kind of like our yellow snapper. And one of its favorite tricks is actually just standing on its nose in a tall vertical coral. Anything long, skinny, vertical, and it goes nose down, tail up. This is the master of color change. This fish can, probably the best color changing fish I know about, can be almost any color you can think of. He'll just go right down there, blend in perfectly camouflage, and he can wait there for hours for little fish to swim by. And if it gets close enough, he can open that huge mouth, and it sucks in the water, sucks in the fish. This is vacuum feeding. Most fish will do this feeding that way. It's just very dramatic when this one does it, okay? Now, his mouth, it goes wide like that. So if he's standing on his nose, he's getting hungry, hasn't caught anything to eat, it can do another trick that takes more energy but will guarantee a meal. And it's called shadow stalking. So this guy might find a big herbivore like a parrotfish or angelfish, something like that. It'll get right on top of it or on the side of it. It'll go everywhere that parrotfish goes. It'll change to the same color as the fish he's following. And then when that big parrotfish gets close to little ones, then he can try to grab them, okay? So that's just another way it might feed. But yeah, you can see them yellow. I've sort of noticed they turn yellow after they've eaten the fish. I'm kind of working on a theory. I don't know if I'll ever prove it, but I've noticed them turning yellow. What I think it is yellow being a safe color. He was well hidden from any predators on his nose, camouflage, but now he's caught a fish. He's out in the open, he's trying to struggle with this fish, not paying attention to his environment. Maybe turning yellow is going to help save him, okay? Scientists sort of have another theory that sort of goes hand in hand with this yellow color. It's nothing to do with anything being toxic, but we'll notice some of the fish are more brightly colored than the coral, and that doesn't make any sense for camouflage. What the biologists feel that stands to say to a predator is, here I am, I'm brightly colored, I'm not even trying to hide, I'm probably not good to eat. Okay, so that's kind of one train of thought, but also that yellow can be a sign of things being toxic. All right, guys, so that's a good bit of fish for you to see. You might see some oddball stuff like this, little smooth trunk fish. They kind of just waddle along real slow. So these are real cute. We never know what we're going to see from day to day. Those fish I told you about just now, hopefully you're going to see all of them. Like I said, probably in about the first half an hour or less even. And if you see something different, you know, just try to get a good look at it and describe it to me. I'm pretty good at figuring out what fish are. But I just have to warn you, just don't come back to the boat and say, Keith, I saw a blue one with green on its tail, and what was it? You know, I don't know, it changes color sometimes, so I need what the shape of it, what was his mouth like, was his tail delta, or was it flat, stuff like that, okay? So it's pretty safe out here snorkeling. Really nothing's gonna come up and get you. And I just quickly wanna talk about jellyfish, which are really not such a threat in Bermuda. And we've had very few jellies this year. But this is a typical jelly for Bermuda. It's called a moon jelly. And while they have sort of like a four-leaf clover pattern on the inside, it's how you can identify them. They're gonna be really clear. Now, when I was a kid growing up, we actually used to use these like water balloons. We had jellyfish fights, all right? No sting going on there. They can get about that big. They can get a little bit of a lavender outline. When they have this little bit of color, they can have a mild sting. I kind of just push them out of the way with my hands. But if one of those really big ones got you, like say under here or something, you know, you'll get, oh, it got me, a little jolt, you know, and you just rub it, and after a few minutes, it's kind of gone. You have a little itchy rash for a while. Definitely not life-threatening. I haven't really seen any of these this year, which is bad. Our turtles like to eat them, and our turtles need some food right now. Also, a common one we'll have are called comb jellies, which I haven't seen them either. It's not the umbrella-shaped thing. It's like a, I don't know, you wave water with your hands, it kind of opens up and it closes back up again. They're called comb jellies because they have 8 sets of cilia on the side, little combs, and they can actually be very pretty when the sun hits them just right. It kind of shimmers. Haven't even seen these this year. No sting there either. One day I saw some small thimble jellies. No sting. So I just want to give you guys sort of a general rule of thumb for here in Bermuda. I don't know if this will work when you go to Australia, but if you see a jellyfish here in Bermuda and it's pretty much completely clear, no color at all, it's probably not going to be a stinger at all. If it has color to it, it might potentially be a stinger. It doesn't mean it is going to be a stinger, but it might be able to sting you. So if you do see like a jellyfish that has color, just avoid it. There's really one kind of thing we look out for here in Bermuda, and it's called a Portuguese man-of-war, and this thing stings like fire. And it's more of a springtime thing, early summer. I have not seen one in about a month, but I just need you to know about it. So it's this lavender transparent bubble, floats on the surface. It has darker purple tentacles that trail below it. This thing, it can't swim like a jellyfish. It's at the mercy of the winds and the currents, so it just gets blown along. They actually kind of collect more on the beach. That's where most people will get stung. Now, out here in the open, they're usually far and few in between. Here's the thing. When you guys are out there swimming, I'm going to be watching you the whole time if I'm not in the water with you. And if I spot a man-of-war like this near you, I'm going to point at you. I'm going to say, hey, you, swim this way. I might whistle, blow horn, whatever I have to do. Swim this way or swim that way. So there's only two reasons I'll ever tell you which way to swim. One is there's an area I don't want you going too far. And so if you're out there, like I said, I'll whistle and I'll be like, come back a little closer to the boat. It's no big deal. Just come back closer to the boat. The other, I'll be yelling, man of war, go that way, go that way. I just need you to know what I'm talking about. You might not hear me so well. What is it? Is it pretty? Should I look at it? It's like, no, go the other way, okay? Now, I'm pretty sure we're not going to see one because the wind is coming straight from here. Unless the man of war land on the beach on South Shore and then they learn how to fly onto the north side, we're not going to see one. But you never know. I just want you to know about it.
Why are they called men of war?
I don't know.
Do they really come from Portugal or Brazil?
They're all over the Atlantic. I don't know. I don't know why he got that name. It's a pretty threatening name, though. It's a pretty threatening, it's not a jellyfish, but it's a threatening thing. So anyway, guys, thanks for listening to the fish talk. What is it?
Will we see any manta rays or turtles?
Okay, occasionally we can see an eagle ray out here, but that is not super common. And if you're like kind of keen on seeing that stuff, there's sort of one area it might show up in, and I'll point that out to you. If you're really like looking for eagle rays, Flats Village is the place. Right in Flats and Hampton Sound, there's a bit of current there. There's a lot of shellfish under the sand. And that's kind of where I grew up seeing these things. They used to spook us as kids. We knew what they were. They're harmless eagle rays, but they'd always swim with one fin out of the water. And of course, when you're like 8 years old, that means shark, you know what I mean? Even though we knew it was an eagle ray.
There's lots of eagle rays up there?
Oh, we got a good number of them. Also, Heron Bay is another place that I've been seeing a lot of small ones. And it's really just kind of this green, murky water in there, but they like it in there. Flats is a good place to try to spot them. Flats, Gibbets, is right around Flats. But hey, you know, occasionally we'll see them. On my last trip last year, it was just me and some friends came out. And it was just a glassy day. That's why we went. And we were just looking down, clear water. You could see right to the bottom, like 60 feet down. It wasn't that deep where we were, but just probably about 8 or 10 of these just little guys like that. And there's a couple big ones. They're very pretty. They have a black back, a white belly, but they have yellow rings on their back.
What are they called?
It's the eagle ray.
Oh, the
eagle ray, yeah. We don't really have stingrays here so much.
You're talking about the spotted ones?
Spotted eagle ray, yeah.
How about turtles?
Okay, there are 2 hawksbills that live out here. One of them is missing a fin the last time I saw it. All right, they're pretty shy of people, so as soon as he sees a person, actually when I first saw him out there, just go like this, he freezes on the reef. He's like, you know, if I don't move, you don't see me. And I'm like, nah, buddy, I don't see you, you know. But yeah, one of them lost a fin last year, so I haven't seen him yet this year. It'll probably survive. It'll probably do pretty good, but yeah, a lot of green sea turtles around, which seem like they're more inshore. But yeah, you never know from day to day some of these oddball fish that might come around and what you'll see, you know. So hopefully you do see a turtle. Recently saw an octopus, so that was kind of a rare sighting. You know what, they can be there, but you know, good luck seeing the thing. You know, you see them when they move. But when they're kind of set up in position, you just kind of look right over them. So yeah, a little small octopus here. If you're really keen on finding an octopus, you look around the sandy bottoms, and if you find like a lot of lobster shells, that's his den.
They change color.
Yeah, octopus are pretty amazing. All right, guys, thanks for listening to my fish talk. We'll be up here in our spot in about 10 minutes. white one? We're going right in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get you guys some snorkeling gear. I'll get your flippers and your shoe sizes. And when you got your flippers, we'll take them over. We're going to get in on this side. Just sit on the side of the boat, put your flippers on. I'll fit you with a mask, and then over you go. So everybody who's like confident, you know what you're doing, you got your gear, you're ready to go, get on it. If you're a little bit nervous and you think you need some help or anything like that, just stick around and I'm going to help you out the best I can. But anyway, we have at least an hour here. It took me a little long getting out today for wind direction. I kind of shoot for about an hour and a quarter in the water, so that's usually pretty good for most people. If we're really, really liking it, we can actually stay a little bit longer. I don't know what your schedule's like, but does anybody have to be back like exactly at 2 o'clock? Everybody's kind of happy just to chill and maybe stay a little bit longer, it's fine. Okay, let me get your flippers and I'll get you some shoe sizes. I'll just hit the reef and probably circle around down there. And then, like I said, you swim way up. Maybe have a nice little drift out. Just do what you want. We got, you know, over an hour or so. You're welcome. Yeah, do that want to fish you? Or? So we want to start up in this area first. Good. nephew, Matthew Summers, who is actually not an impeccable character. In fact, Matthew was sent to go with Uncle George. He's going to make a real man out of you type of thing. So the requests go like this. Before the admiral dies, he asked Matthew to take his body home to England, but cut out his heart and bury it here in Bermuda, because he loved the island so much. Matthew would go home and tell everybody, it's not the devil's isle, it's a paradise, you need colonizers. There's good soil, there's good fishing, there's good anchors for our ships. Most importantly, it's going to be a strategic location for the settlement of America. So it sounded like a brilliant plan. Now here's the thing, the reason the Spanish didn't really have a claim, they saw charts that they left no people behind. If you were going to make a claim on any kind of country island, you gotta leave people behind. So that's what these two men were doing, they were staying behind. And they figured Matthew would go home, there'd be a ship coming, and when the ship came, they'd be richly rewarded for this honorable job they've done. Well, if not rewarded, at least they wouldn't be hanged anyway.